Hello, everyone. Welcome to Question Everything, a podcast all about learning from the successes and the failures of those who dared to, question everything. This podcast is part interview, part therapy, and part Price is Right. We have our own game board stacked with questions that'll make even the most successful CMOs totally sweat. I'm your host, Ashley Walters, CMO and partner at Curiosity. On this episode, I sit down with Pete Carter, founder and CEO of Creative Haystack, famous for his agency matchmaking and his tenure at P&G. Today, we chat the benefits of ditching the pitch for both the agency and the client, the art of crafting the perfect selling line that will give you the tingles, and the best P&G work of all time. So wash your shirt and tie, or your hair in Pantene, or your face in Olay, because this episode is an absolute slay. Pete Carter is the founder and CEO of Creative Haystack. Prior to starting Creative Haystack, he spent 41 years at Procter & Gamble as the head of an internal global advertising think tank. He has lived and worked on several continents, helping create business-building advertising campaigns, including 3 Super Bowl spots for some of P&G's most iconic brands. In the last 3 years, he personally interviewed more than 300 creative agencies and invented a process for assigning them to P&G brands without a pitch. He retired in 2021 and created Creative Haystack, which is a consulting company that helps brands find unique agencies, their competitive positioning, and create new advertising campaigns. Welcome to Question Everything, Pete.
Thank you.
Woo!
Thank you. Whoa.
What a career.
Yeah, well, I'm an old guy, so yes.
Well, and it hasn't stopped. I want to say retire in quotation marks, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I suck at retirement.
Yeah.
Is
That's what your wife
told me.
said, right?
Yes.
So what have you been up to most recently?
Most recently, I'm working with a couple of kind of transitioning clients from direct-to-consumer to mass marketers. And those are a lot of fun because they really don't understand mass, and they think, oh, everything has to be direct to consumer, and that mass stuff, we don't need to create a brand. We just need to target the right people.
Yeah.
And what they've done is created businesses that are targeted to a lot of different people who have a lot of different ideas about what their brand stands for. Mm-hmm. And that's a problem because now they're trying to get into retail, and it's not easy.
Yeah.
Okay. You've got to have something that you stand for, that everyone can understand that. So yes, I've been doing that, and that's been a lot of fun.
I love that. That's the power of P&G too. All that experience, that retail knowledge is just so beneficial to brands like Dude Wipes, which is something that we've worked on together.
That's right.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, I read something about you. You were one of 18 marketers to earn the Harley Procter Marketer title. What can you tell me about that?
Okay, first thing I can tell you is it's not about motorcycles.
Okay.
And the second thing I'll tell you is Harley Procter was the first marketing person at Procter & Gamble. And he was one of the founder's nephews. And I guess the story is that he went out and actually bought the first newspaper ads for them. So the award is kind of a lifetime achievement award that's given out at P&G. And I was lucky enough to get one.
Wow.
I tried bribing all the judges years before. I got nothing, but finally it came through. And it's quite an honor. And I'm really thrilled to have been named one of those Harley Proctors.
Wow. Congratulations.
So, thank you.
That's incredible. All right. So as you know, we've got a very fun game board planned. I've got 12 questions.
Okay.
Super spicy questions. You don't really know which questions behind which number.
Okay.
So it's a little improv. It's inspired by our CQ session, which you have been a part of a lot of CQ sessions.
Yes.
And actually told us at one point, this is your superpower. Double down on this. And so this format has been a huge part of our strategic process since then.
Good. And it's working?
It's working.
Oh, good. I can check that off my list now.
And you were like, you know what? You should be charging people for this. And I'm like, oh, good idea.
It is a talent, and it is a process that is unique. And, I've reviewed a lot of agencies, and your CQ process is fun, interesting, gets to a result that clients need, and you do it in a very unique way. So I really like it. That's why I said it was a superpower.
Love that. Thank you. Man, I'm going to write that down. All right. Well, the board is yours, 1 through 12.
Okay. Well, let's start with lucky number 8. Number 8 is a very lucky number in China. Okay, as I learned.
Okay.
So whenever I would argue and negotiate the price of something, okay, I would always add an 8 to the end of it and say, very lucky number.
Oh, and did it work?
And it worked all the time.
Fabulous.
Okay.
All right. Well, here's a good one to start with. So in your opinion, what would you say is P&G's best work of all time, whether you were part of it or not? Anything come to mind?
Yeah, there's a bunch. I mean, for one of the retiring CEOs, we did a top 100 executions of all time, as a gift to him as he was retiring. So I remember that we looked at this, and it was really hard just to get to the 100. But I think there's a couple of things that come to mind. The first one that comes to mind is I didn't do this. It was done on Pampers, and it's called Peace on Earth. And it was actually nothing more than a sleeping baby and the music to Silent Night. And they air it every Christmas time. And the whole idea was brilliant because Pampers had always been about absorbency, but that was kind of a commodity in the category. And so one of my colleagues and the Saatchi & Saatchi agency came up with this idea of absorbency so your child can sleep through the night. And as you know, you have kids.
Yes.
I had kids a long time ago. Getting up in the middle of the night was terrible because their diaper is wet or whatever, or it's leaked through onto their legs and they're rolling around in it. And it's like, okay, we need something that helps kids sleep through the night. And this ad does that extremely well.
Wow.
Okay. And like I said, it's been around for a very long time. They still air it. They air it all over the world. It worked all over the world. So it's a great ad.
Great insight. It's a communication statement or a selling line, really, that anybody across the world can kind of understand and has like a feeling associated with it, right? It's very emotional.
Oh yeah, it is. I don't know. I mean, when we had little babies in the house, I was really good at playing possum and saying, "Oh, honey, I'm not awake yet.
It's your turn.
Okay.
It's your turn.
It's your turn." Right?
Yeah. Oh, I've been there.
So anything that would help the baby sleep through the night was helping the parents as well.
Yes, amen to that. Oh, love that. Great. What a great example. And we'll link to it if we can find it. If it's still online, I'm sure
it is.
Yeah, so everybody can see it. All right.
Okay. How about number 10?
Number 10. Okay, so I read that Creative Haystack has a 90% satisfaction rate with your clients, which is insane. Agency matchmaking is very, 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 very difficult. So getting it right 90% of the time, crazy. Is there anything we can learn from the 10%? Like when matches don't go well, like what is it? What can agencies learn, or what can CMOs learn about that process to make sure they're part of that 90%?
Yeah, well, first you should understand that the 90% satisfaction is not just a client number, okay? That's a number that I used when we were doing this at the little soap company on the river, because, if you can get 90% of P&G people to agree to something, I mean, that's amazing, right? And we had a couple of people who we couldn't help because they were looking for an agency that was outside the scope of what I had really utilized as my focus, which were creative agencies. Okay.
Yeah.
So part of that was that. When I quote this from Creative Haystack, the comment that I get is really from agencies that have not been chosen in the process. Like I still send them the survey and say, hey, you weren't selected, but I'd like your feedback on the process. And for the most part, 90% of them saying, yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
There was one or two that were like, well, you made the decision too fast.
Okay.
You didn't, You didn't, obviously you didn't think too much about it because we met with you and then 2 days later we got the result. And it was like, well, I wanted to say, well, that's good. We made the decision fast because we had condensed the time frame to look at all the agencies. What I do with my clients is we do a little road trip. We go and visit. We break bread with the agency. We let them do a little show and tell, showing some of the case studies that they have from their other clients. And from that, we make a decision. And that works when you have someone like myself who knows the agencies well and can screen them out.
Yeah.
Things that probably don't make sense.
Yeah.
And, I don't always have a favorite going in, and because a lot of times things change in the delivery. Someone does something in a meeting that I go, okay, that just blew it.
Yeah.
Right? Or someone else does something amazing and you just go, okay, the chemistry here is great. And that's the other thing I should probably talk about is that my process puts an equal emphasis on capability and on chemistry. Those are the two aspects because I want my clients to find long-term partners.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, the chemistry has to be good. And a lot of pitch processes that people do, I don't even call mine a pitch because mine's a search.
Yeah.
Because I don't let the agencies pitch. I don't want them spending money of their creative talent and the time and effort. I'd rather that they take the case studies that they have and talk to us about that. And we'll make the connection as to whether that's what we're looking for or not. And then we do a whole, chemistry section where we break bread, we talk, we interact, we find out about their lives, the agency's lives, the client's life. And you can really see if there's a good fit there.
Yeah.
And that's what works.
I've been part of your process and I can say it is very unique. I hope more brands start to take on a process like this because you really get to know the client on a personal level and they get to know you too. And so, I mean, the whole idea of like ditch the pitch, and I love that you call it more of a search than a pitch. I think that's a really good framework for us to be thinking about our next new client or a CMO listening today. You're thinking about who's my new agency going to be. You really want to make sure the chemistry's there, the case studies are there, the work's there. But do you need to see how they respond to a strategic brief with all this spec work? Like, do we need all of that today?
No, because you can tell, at least I can tell, and that if someone has the capability I'm looking for, I can tell by the way they react to things, the way they talk about their business that they've done for other clients. I usually try to poke at something.
Not you.
Yes,
you?
I know you find that hard to believe, but I usually try to poke at something and challenge something that they've done to understand whether or not they can take criticism. How do they deal with that? Do they immediately get defensive or do they open up?
Yeah.
Okay. I also tell my clients, look for the agency saying things in the first person plural. When they talk about their client relationship, do they talk about we? We did this, we did that, or is it, well, the client did this? Because that shows ownership. And so I give my clients a little checklist of about 10 things to look for in the visitation section.
Okay.
And
what else
that's
is on
one
that
of them.
list?
Well, I don't want to reveal all of those. Come on.
Well, I call that, you know what I call that? I call that eye troubles. And I talk to my team about that. I talk to my kids about that. When you're always talking, I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this, I'll tell them, you've got eye troubles. You've got to really focus on the we and the collaboration that it took to pull something like this off. So I like that.
Well, and typically if I challenge something and they say, well, the client demanded that, it's like, okay, but you're the agency. So why did they demand it? What was the argument you made? You did have a role in that in some way. So I try to understand that as well.
Great. All right.
Okay. How about number 2?
Number 2.
Because since we work on dude wipes together,
Number 2, that's our
perfect.
favorite number, right? Okay, you've heard the phrase, nobody ever gets fired for hiring Wieden & Kennedy, or insert big, large, holding company agency. So why should other CMOs consider implementing more of that fixed and flow process? And for anybody listening who doesn't know, you are famously responsible for helping P&G think through different ways to get more small agencies into the P&G mix, which for a long time was very hard. I've always worked at a small independent agency. I've always tried to get into P&G, and it was so incredibly hard until you implemented this fixed and flow process. So tell us a little bit about that, some of the benefits, and what can other CMOs learn from it?
Okay. Well, first off, I have to correct you. I did not implement the fixed and flow. Don't give me credit for that. That actually came from our purchasing, or as you would call it, procurement people. The purchasing people really were a big part of fixed and flow. And they helped us think through how to bring small agencies in, or supplemental agencies, whether they're small or not, into our process.
Well, I think that's insight one, is that partnership between marketing and purchasing or procurement is so important.
That's right. And, I want to just give you a shout out. Like, our procurement people were partners, and they understood what they were buying. Mm-hmm. They were not like a bunch of chemical buyers that then, were buying advertising.
Yeah.
Okay. They actually took the time to get to know what the advertising business was like, what the people were like, immerse themselves in that so that they could be a full partner. Mm-hmm. And they were.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a lot of respect for them. The first time I went to the small agency conference, we had invited some of the purchasing people to come with us.
Smart.
And this guy got up on the first day, and he was like, "This is procurement." And he showed this picture of these dead turtles. Okay. And he goes, "These are the people that are making all the decisions, and you have to get through these people to do this." And I was like, that is so not what the P&G procurement people were. Mm. They were so much more active partners. So the joke I had with our procurement people was, hey, you are Ninja Turtles, okay? You are not just turtles, you are Ninja Turtles. Mm. So in fact, one of them's name was Dan, and I called him Danatello from then on. Okay.
That's cool.
So, I think the fixed and flow process was really helpful because it said, hey, there are some things that we know we want our roster agencies to do. And at the little soap company, we had big roster agencies. We had long-term commitments to them. We had built a lot of relationships all through them. And to give that up was not something we wanted to do easily, okay, or quickly. And there's a lot of churn. Every time a new CMO comes into another company, they churn. At P&G, that did not happen. Yeah. We stayed with people a long time. However, we found that there were some things that our roster agencies couldn't do, or didn't do as well, or didn't have the agility to move as quickly on. And so we started getting other agencies to do that. Mm-hmm. And that helped everybody get better, because the rosters looked at it and said, "Whoa, we got some competition here. We got to up our game." And the new guys brought fresh thinking to the work. So, and we tried, I tried very hard not to make them compete. Mm-hmm. I tried to make them all on the same team. So what we did was we created swim lanes for them. It was like when I was working on Olay, it was like Saatchi did certain things, pieces of work, and Badger did certain pieces of work. Yeah. And we kind of put the work to what the agency's superpowers were. Mm-hmm. And that worked. And they felt like they were part of the same team.
Yep.
So
extreme clarity. So there's not any like competitive conflict between the two, which I appreciate.
Exactly. What you don't want is too much conflict there. And so we treated them as a team. When there was a meeting, it was the whole team was there. And if someone had a good idea, we went with that good idea regardless of where it came from. Mm-hmm. And that worked.
And the other thing I really liked about the process is that you didn't ask agencies to pitch all the time. So like once you kind of got over that initial introduction into P&G, procurement kind of knew who we are, right? They know what our superpower is. And then they just call you and say, I've got this opportunity. Is it a good fit? If it is, it's a 1 hour meeting with the brand team. It's not a huge like production. There's no spec work. It's just another Capes chemistry kind of a conversation.
Exactly.
Which speeds you guys up significantly, and it's beneficial to us.
Well, the advantages of the process that I've implemented at Creative Haystack is, for the client, it is faster. Like we can get to an agency within 4 weeks.
Wow.
From start to finish. By the time they hire me to do it until we hire the agency, 4 weeks. We've done that in several. Okay. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer because of vacations or whatever. So 6 weeks.
Yeah.
But that's what I promise people. I also promise them that it's going to be cheaper in the long run. What clients don't understand is they are paying for all the pitches that their agency is doing for other clients. They have to hire a business development group. They have to do work. And all of that is in the cost of goods that you're paying for all the time. So it is faster and it's cheaper. And I think it's better because we find long-term partners, not just a one-off for something.
Yeah.
Okay, because we do the chemistry thing really much more than anybody else. That's really important.
So the fixed and flow process, a few of the benefits we talked about. So it's much faster, it's more cost effective, and you guys are getting the opportunity to see a variety of agencies to make sure that that culture and the capability fit works. Whereas before, it was just a handful of agencies that P&G had worked with.
Yeah, and I don't want to speak for P&G because I don't.
Right,
okay,
right. You're retired.
But when I was there, yes, those were some of the advantages.
Yeah, that's great. All right, let's go back to the game board.
Okay, number one.
Okay, so we've danced around this for a little bit, but let's just talk ditch the pitch. I love the phrase. When I hear it, it's often associated with you in the press and things like that. So I know all the benefits to ditching the pitch, right? It's faster, it's built more on capabilities and chemistry, less on the spec work. We're spending more time getting to know each other and less time, with the song and dance, the theater of all of a pitch. Is there anything that you think is like a risk associated with it? Is there any downfall with ditching the pitch?
I think I'll look at it from both sides. From the agency side, I don't believe that there's much risk. In fact, the feedback I get constantly is, oh my gosh, this is so much better than what we're doing. Okay. From a client side, I think there's more risk because it's unfamiliar territory.
Yeah.
And you have to have a lot of trust in two things. They have to have a lot of trust in me, okay, that I know what I'm doing and I'm going to bring them. Like typically the way I start the process is I bring them 8 to 10 agencies based on some discussion we've had up front. I bring them 8 to 10 agencies that I think might fit their criteria. I show them work from those agencies. We talk about the capabilities, the size, what makes sense. If I know something about the personality, I bring that to the table as well, or the key people that I know there and how that works. So I bring that. But it's relying on me to do that. And, I'm taking that from the 300 or so that I've vetted personally. There's about 500 that I've looked at, but 300 that I've gone to visit or done a virtual visit with them during COVID. That was the way I made it work. And get them to 12. And then from the 12, we whittle it down further until we get to 3. Once we get 3, it's like, okay, now it's time to visit. But I don't even tell the agencies that they're in this search until we get to about 6. And then there may be some questions that will get us to 3. And so I have to go to the agencies and find out, what's the information. But it's 4 or 5 questions. I don't send them an RFP with 25 questions and stuff like that. It's like, no, I call them. I tell them what the questions are, tell them what I've seen that might help, but what they need to tell me. And then they get back to me. And then before the visit, I also give them a very detailed 2-page brief that says, this is what I'd like you to talk about. This is what I know about the client, their personalities, whatever. And I try to help them as much as possible to be successful.
Yep.
So,
And it's working. I mean, a 90% success rate.
it's
Even from
working.
the people who aren't winning. That's hard to do.
Yeah.
So if there's agencies out there who want to win more business without pitching, do you have any advice to them?
It's really tough because, most of the discussion of ditch the pitch is with agencies. They love it. They're pushing for it, whatever.
Yeah.
It's really the client has to take that on in order to make it work. And so what I've been trying to do is find a way to tell clients, that this is available to you. And, they're only going to go to it if they think there's an advantage.
Yeah.
Right? So typically time and money are big advantages. So if they can hear about that and can trust the person that they're using as their search consultant to get them that short list, then great. Then it works. But it's really about getting clients to change their mind. I think the agencies are already there. So hopefully the more the more the word gets out, and it's not just me, there are others that talk about the same thing.
Yeah.
So.
All right, I have to know something just personally. So, agencies
this is between just you and I, right?
Just you and I.
This
Yeah,
out.
we won't.
Okay.
This will be private. So agencies, I've been in other pitches where the client's like, no spec work needed. Just high level thoughts. Whatever. Just questions you might ask us. But then there's always an agency that goes all out and brings spec and storyboards when the rules said don't.
Yep.
How do you handle that? Has anybody tried to do that on you?
No.
Okay.
Because as part of that brief that I give them, I have in big, bold letters, if you show spec work, you will be eliminated. Okay? It's like you're a cancer in this process. I'm eradicating you.
Yeah.
Okay? And so it's very clear. So no one does it.
Okay.
I don't mind if they want to talk about their thoughts on how they would approach the business or things they've thought about, but not work.
Yeah.
Not actual creative work. If the creative wants to talk about, I could see going off in this direction, or I really like that selling line that you have, and so I would look at it from this angle, that's fine. But it's conversational. There's no slide that does that.
Okay. All right. I like that.
There's one agency that did something very interesting, even though it wasn't spec work, but they sold themselves based on someone they had in the room. Okay, this was a small agency, and I knew most of them because they were small.
Yeah.
And I was bringing a P&G client at the time to them, and they said, I'm going around the room, and everyone's talking. About halfway through the meeting, I look at this one guy, and he's got this giant beard. And we were talking about a shaving brand.
Okay.
It wasn't Gillette at the time. It was something else. And I'm like, so John, what's your role in this? And he says, oh, I'm a copywriter, but I'm a freelance copywriter, but I'm actually a professional bearder. We were like, what's that?
Yeah.
And he starts showing us pictures of how he grows his beard and then changes shapes it, and does all kinds of funky stuff with it.
How cool.
And we were so impressed that they had gone and found someone who was going to really understand what our target needed, that it was like, okay, got it.
I want John.
I want those guys.
Yeah.
So that sold it.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Just that unique little spin.
It was a little twist.
Very cool. That's good advice.
Okay, how about double ones, 11?
Let's go 11. Okay, so you consult a lot of CMOs. I know you work very closely with the dudes, among many others who are, they're entrepreneurs. They might be a little bit new to the marketing world, but they're definitely seeing some early success. And I've heard a lot of the advice you've given them in particular, but I know you work with a lot of different CMOs. So my question to you is, what is the best piece of advice you can give a CMO today?
Well, okay, my off the hand advice would be make sure your resume is always up to date because the average CMO lasts 18 months.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oof.
So you only have a limited amount of time to
Yeah.
do your work, and hopefully you can last longer than that. But the serious answer, okay, would be, I think I would tell them, make sure you know your brand and where your positioning is. It's kind of like the superpower thing I do for the agencies. It's like, know what the superpower is of your brand. And in fact, in my process, that's one of the first questions I ask during that initial, let's talk about what you need for an agency meeting. And if I get different answers from different people in the room, or I get an answer that goes on with multiple ideas in it and they can't really articulate it, it's like, okay, excuse me, we need to time out here because we need positioning work. You need to have a clear positioning and you need to know what that is. Mm-hmm. And if you don't know what that is, I'm not giving you an agency that you're going to set off and not know what they're going to sell.
Yeah.
Okay. And then they're going to fail. So let's spend some time now to do that. In fact, I did it with the dudes.
Yeah, you did.
Okay. They actually were talking about fresh.
Yeah.
Okay. They had this guy who was their dude guy in their ads, and he was like, and that's fresh. And it was like, guys, is that what you want to stand for? Or is there something else? And very quickly, we got to a new point of view, which was, no, we're cleaner than toilet paper. There's a superiority statement. There's an idea. Okay, let's go. Clean's better than toilet paper. Mm-hmm. Got it.
Yeah.
So I would tell CMOs, know what your brand is very cleanly and crisply, and then everything else will follow. But if you don't spend that time to really make those decisions up front, and it's really decision making, if you don't do those, your marketing is going to be all over the place and you won't last more than 18 months.
Gosh, great advice. Mic drop.
Okay, good. I'm glad you like that.
Yeah.
Number 5.
Okay, so we all have heard of the P&G pitch elevator, which started at the Ad Age Small Agency Conference. Mm-hmm. So maybe without naming names, or maybe you can, what are some of the best and worst pitches you've seen in the elevator?
Okay.
Spill the tea.
The best pitch was from a very small agency. Well, first off, your listeners may not know that the elevator pitch was, we built an elevator. People went into the elevator. They had 5 minutes on a timer to make a pitch to us about their agency, tell us everything we needed to know that they wanted us to know in 5 minutes. And we recorded them all. And then we went back to Cincinnati and looked at the 70 recordings. Okay.
Wow.
That first year.
Pressure cooker.
Yeah. And there was a best pitch. And they were a small agency out of Lexington, Kentucky.
I think I know who.
That's right. You do. Wonderful agency. And the first thing I would tell you is they first had a theme to their pitch. And they said, okay, these are the top 10 reasons you should hire us.
Yes.
And they started, number 1, number 2, went through. So there was a framework to their pitch. Mm-hmm. They did it in the 5 minutes. Okay. They talked about their superpower. Mm-hmm. They made it very personal. Okay. They understood us. So they were in Lexington. We were in Cincinnati. I remember the creative director making a comment like, hey, and we're close. And if you want to meet us at the Cracker Barrel in Dry Ridge, come meet us there. Okay. And I thought, okay, very clever. They understand. Okay. So they did a lot of great things. They were very crisp about their examples, and the examples that they showed or talked about were all very concrete. Here's what the context was. Here was the result. Mm-hmm. And they were very results oriented, and results in the sense of business building results. Like I always tell people, it's very easy to get a like or even to call something an impression. It's very difficult to get someone to open their wallet and give you money.
Yeah.
So I want to know, where did people give you money? Mm-hmm. And they did all of that. Yeah. And probably the worst one, I don't remember where the guy was from. It was a one-man agency. He got in there and he held up this book and he was like, I have read this book on marketing. And so I'm very well versed on this, on all the marketing trends that are going on. And I was like, the book isn't written by him. Okay. We were like, why is he pushing this? In fact, I wanted to call him and say, don't do that ever again.
I'm surprised you didn't.
I wanted to. I really felt bad for the guy because it was all about, I've read this book and I follow this book. It's like, well, I could read the book and not hire you.
That's right. So that's right. No competitive advantage.
No advantage whatsoever.
Yeah. Okay. Great advice. So whenever we're pitching P&G or anybody really, any new business pitch, you have to know your superpower first and foremost.
Yep.
And then what is your unique advantage? Those business results. So when you talk about your case studies and your capabilities, how is it getting people to open their wallet or take the action that you're asking them to take?
And, it's really hard in this kind of world where purpose is
everywhere.
given so much credit. And, in our, P&G's CEO has talked purpose. He has since clarified, that it is not philanthropy that he's interested in, It's growing the business, right? And he is interested in doing philanthropy and building social programs and things like that, yes. But that's a smaller portion of the business. I remember going to see an agency and they thought they had the inside track because they had looked at everything that he had said and they showed me all this purpose work. And I was like, yeah, that's great. And you've really tugged at the heartstrings, but have you actually got anything that can show me people pulled out their wallet and paid more? Oh, well, that's not really what we're focused on. I'm like, okay, got it.
Yeah.
But sorry, I'm not interested. Other people may be interested and that's fine.
Yeah.
But I'm not.
Yeah, I've heard Mark Pritchard say it a million times. You've got to be a force for good and a force for growth.
And he's now turned it around. You got to be a force for growth and a force for good.
Yeah.
He's got it in the right order now, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. All right, let's go back to that game board.
All right, number 6.
Number 6. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about the time that we got to be part of a Pete Carter pitch, and it was for Dude Wipes. And so you led that. And it was very successful in our opinion.
You got the business.
We got the business.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm just curious from your perspective, what is one thing that you think we did to seal the deal?
I think the chemistry here was outstanding. It was really funny. I don't think I have ever told you this, but the dudes almost didn't come to Cincinnati. They looked at several agencies in Chicago.
Which is where they're headquartered.
Which is where they're headquartered. And, of the 3 agencies we were going to look at, several were in Chicago. So we started there. And they were like, hey, Pete, we think we might have found something. It's really good. And maybe we didn't need you after all. And I'm like, guys, just keep an open mind and come to Cincinnati. Because I got a funny feeling there's something there that you're going to like. Okay. And sure enough, they came here. You guys did an absolutely hit it out of the park presentation. I will say that you were one of the few in that search that actually called me between the time we told you there was going to be a visit and when the visit was. You actually called me and said, hey, we're thinking about doing this. What do you think of that? And so I gave you my best advice, which I would give anybody. There was another agency that did that as well, but there was some that didn't. And I find that really strange. Like, I'm working for you too, guys. I want you to be successful. So that can work, but you did that. And I think that helped.
Yep.
And like I said, the chemistry was outstanding. You hit it out of the park on the capability, and then the chemistry was great. You entered the room with a crass comment that the dudes just said, okay, this person doesn't take this business too seriously. That's the way they think about their business. They don't want to be stuffy and stodgy, and they have to talk about poop. Okay, so it just goes that way.
That's great.
So it worked. And I remember the guys called me because they were going back back to Chicago, and I was going back home, which I live here. And I called them immediately after I left the chemistry session, and they had gotten in a cab, and I called them, and the first thing, they answered the phone and they said, "Frickin' Pete Carter, you nailed it. You knew we would love these guys." And I said, "Yes, I am so happy. I do have value." Okay, it worked. But I was thrilled for everybody because I knew they would find a great agency, and I knew you guys would be a great agency for them. So
you talk about speed a lot, and I have to say, so speed through the whole process, but even the you won. And for anybody else that's working at an agency right now, you have to understand, and I know you feel this doesn't happen almost ever, but we hadn't even left the restaurant where we were breaking bread, and we got the phone call that we won.
That's right.
And you hadn't even made it back home. You ran back to the restaurant.
I hadn't made it to my car. And when they told me that they wanted to award, I was like, I'm going back because I want to be there with the Curiosity people when they hear. And sure enough, they were on the phone with you guys when I walked in the room, back in the room. So it was
cool. And then we were
great.
Onboarding a couple of weeks later. I mean, it was that quick.
The credit goes to the Dude Wipes guys that are very decisive about everything. Yeah. They move very quickly, and they are not afraid to take some risk and to move. And that's what they did. And I loved it. So it was a very quick process for them.
Mm-hmm. Great. All right. I think we've got time for two more. You
okay.
good?
Number 3.
Let's go. Number 3. So you've been a part of creating 3 Super Bowl spots. Can you pick a favorite? Is it like picking a favorite child, or do you think
It is.
Can we name a favorite?
My favorite is Tide Talking Stain.
Okay.
Tide Talking Stain, it was one of those things where the agency pitched it to us, and we bought it immediately, and it happened then and there. It was done. We knew it was going to be great. No one in the room had any doubt that it wasn't perfect.
Wow.
Okay, so that is
Tell us about it. What was the strategy behind it? How'd they sell it?
Yeah, so we were selling Tide Stain Pen. And the nice thing about Tide Stain Pen is, you get a stain, you can immediately take it out and get the stain off. Mm-hmm. Okay, and the agency was Saatchi. They had done some really great work on the initial launch of that, which showed a drill sergeant talking to his recruits. And one of them has a coffee stain on their shirt, and he starts laying into the guy, and then he walks away, and the guy comes back, and the stain is gone because someone has handed him a stain pen while he was doing that. Okay, so that was the original work that we did, but Talking Stain was built on the inside of when you have a stain, it says something about you, and it may get in the way of people focusing on anything else, and which is extremely true insight. So what we had was a guy who was going to an interview, and the interviewer is asking a job interview. The interviewer is asking him some questions, and he's answering, but the stain is sitting there going blah 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 blah. Okay, and the guy keeps looking at the stain instead of looking at the recruit. So and then it was like silence the stain was the line, and it worked wonders. And the nice thing about that ad was it not only built the Tide Stain Pen business, but because it was talking stains, we saw an uptick in base Tide business behind it as well. So it was amazing.
Break out the wallet.
That's right. And I would say the second one that I would talk about is Pantene. Strong is Beautiful. We did a thing with, which was, the way I talk about this is, it was a Super Bowl ad where we never bought a Super Bowl ad. So we basically bought 7 or 8 spot markets during the Super Bowl, but somehow USA Today thought we were buying a Super Bowl ad.
Oh, wow.
And so they put us in the
The
mix
ad meter?
of their ad meter. And it was a heartwarming piece where these football players were talking to their daughters about being strong women. Okay. And they were talking about it, and they were trying to do their hair at the same time. And I remember the creative director saying, we're going to find football players who have like simian-like hands and can't really do anything, but it'll be a great interaction between dad and daughter. And that's what it was. And it was rated number 3 best Super Bowl ad that year, even though it wasn't a Super Bowl ad. Yeah. So I have a lot, and that was gray advertising in New York, and that was amazing.
Love that. We'll link to both of those campaigns.
Yeah.
All right, last question. I'm going to put our team on the spot. Can I pick?
Go ahead.
I can't let you out of here without talking about selling lines.
Oh, okay.
So let's go to number 12.
Okay.
So something that I know you can talk about for hours is selling lines. In fact, we have talked a lot about selling lines. Curiosity, I think Jeff Warman, it's funny, anytime he's reviewing creative now internally, he spits a lot of Pete Carter game when he's reviewing selling lines. So I feel like you've trained him. He's a little mini Pete Carter here. So I just want you to talk about selling lines for a little bit. What does it take for a selling line to give you the famous Pete Carter tingles?
Okay. All right. So first off, I call them selling lines because I want them to sell something. That's right. I do not think it's not an end line. It's not a tagline. It's not a universal selling proposition line. It's words, okay? It's words. So I use the term selling line because it needs to sell you something. So if it says, for people who like to enjoy life, that's not a selling line. That's telling me who the target is. That's not telling me, hey, this is what this brand stands for, and this is why you need to buy it. So it needs to be about the benefit of the product. And it can be either the functional benefit or an emotional benefit, or maybe it's both. So something like the best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup is a great selling line. It talks about the emotional benefit of coffee, right? If it's got to be clean, it's got to be Tide. There's a pure functional line. It's not only clean, it's really clean, right? It's a great way of saying, if you've really got a tough problem, we're the product for you. So I look for things that are talking about the benefit, that are selling me something, like you're not fully clean unless you're zestfully clean. The temperature never falls below 0x, which I think is a great line. Recently, best thing I've seen on TV recently is kick pain in the Asper cream. That's a great line. And great lines need craft. They need someone who works with words to really craft those lines. And you know what? There aren't a lot of people who do that today. We've kind of lost that craft in the digital age. I rarely see it. But when I see it, like kick paint in the Asper cream, I was like, who is the agency that did that? And I found out who it was. It was someone I knew. And I was like, I called them up and said, that is a great line.
It's Terry and Sandy, right?
Yes,
yeah.
Terry and Sandy. So, there are things, they are out there, but you have to find them. And that's what gives me the tingles, is like when you have a line like that, you live on that line for years. I was talking to someone the other day about long-term campaigns. And at P&G, there were many long-term campaigns. They hadn't changed the campaign in 20, 30 years. I mean, even Folgers now. You look at Folgers, we sold the company, and they're still using the best part of waking up because they can't find a better line. Yeah. Okay? There used to be a guy named Jim Jordan who had an agency in New York, and his thing was selling lines. And he used to call it power copy. And he was the master of selling. He was the guy who created, it's not ring around the collar, it's whisk around the collar. Okay, which was a detergent brand. I mean, people listening to this probably don't even know what that is. But he created Tum to Tum Tum. Okay, the Xerox line, the Zestfully Clean line.
Wow.
He created those. That was his shtick.
Yeah.
That was his superpower. And he did it really well. And when you have one of those lines, you can live on it for years. Choosy moms, choose Jif. Okay, that's a line that P&G lived on until we sold the company.
Yeah.
And it was like 30, 40 years. You know, easy breezy, beautiful CoverGirl. You can live on that line. You know, hopefully, best clean pants down is one of those lines for dude wipes.
Yeah.
So,
That's great.
You know, when you have it, yes, it gives me the tingles because I know that line has long-term potential. We can reinterpret it many different ways. We had a line on Pantene, strong is beautiful. And we reinterpreted it as strong hair, strong woman. You know, on Olay, we talked about the Face Anything line. We could live on that for years because it was face the sun, face getting older, face the challenges you have as a woman in society. I mean, it was a great platform line.
Yeah, that's great. I feel like there's so much pressure right now that it's like quantity and speed and social and just like lots and lots of assets. And I think that especially some of these entrepreneurs who are kind of just getting their start and just hitting that like growth kind of pivot point, you have to have this too. It's not one or the other, but you have to have an incredible selling line that means something, that evokes some emotion in addition to your content. It's all got to ladder back up to that big brand platform.
That's right. When you have a great line, you can ladder a lot of content to that line by coming at it from different angles.
Yep.
So, you know, as I said with the Olay example, face anything. We can talk about face the sun, face the weather, face the women's challenges, face your internal angst about things. And that was all.
Content that can come out of that is
all
endless.
of that. Yeah. And it's all face anything.
It's great. All right. So the way we like to wrap these up is with a little fun question. Fast, whatever comes to mind first, and it's this or that. So I'm going to give you two options, and you got to pick the first one. Go.
No explanation, just...
No explanation.
Okay.
They need no explanation.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Okay, can I look at the screen?
You can look right at the screen. Yeah,
okay.
Let's go. This or that. The Bengals or the Reds?
Bengals.
Like a boss or like a girl?
Like a boss.
Yeah. The Effies or the Lions?
The Effies.
I thought that's what you say. Pasta or pizza?
Pizza.
Okay.
With pepperoni.
Trey or Jeff?
Oh, come on, Ashley. I'm going off the board.
I love it.
I'll pick Ashley.
All right, good. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Pete. This was awesome.
Hey, it was great to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. We'll talk soon.
All right.